Welcome to this episode of Great Practice, Great Life. And I brought back one of my dear friends, one of our most established and talented practice advisors who not only carries a fantastic workload of working one-on-one, but also does Dominate Your Market programs. He's led tons of practice growth programs. He's taught the W Revenue Workshop. He's done about everything there is to do in Atticus land more than once. He also this year will be the co-facilitator of the summit with me. So welcome, Glenn Gutek. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well. It's good to see you.
It's great to see you too. It's great to be here with you. And you and I have to have a narrow focus because you and I have a great time talking. We have a whole bunch of funny jokes that we pulled on each other. You have an incredible sense of humor, and you also did improv. So let's start off talking about improv just for no good reason other than improv. Why did you take an improv class? Because you're, normally just a very witty guy. Why improv?
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, this right now is improv. Life is improv. I do a lot of public speaking. Obviously, I'm fascinated by the craft of that, and any tool that I can add to my tool bag to play with, to utilize, is always a good thing. And so, it was just an area, and I like performing. There's an element where making people laugh and performing are sort of in the background somewhere. And so we have an incredible improv theater and improv troupe here in Orlando. And so it was an opportunity to learn, and it was a great experience. I also did through the same group. I also did a course on stand up, and eventually fulfilled one of my great life bucket list items, and did a 5-minute stand up routine in front of a live audience. And
good for you. So, what would you suggest? Because I'm trying to improve my leadership skills. I think it's one of the things, and this was a great conversation because I learned a lot. Because you really distinguish managing stress, because I got to learn to manage stress better as a leader. 2, I got to manage complexity. Since I've joined the organization, we've grown, I think, 8-fold, 9-fold. We have gone from a handful of practice advisors to adjunct practice advisors. So we got 20, 30 practice advisors now, a team of terrific resource advisors, a CEO. And I constantly amazed at how much I suck at leadership and suck at communication. And then the dealing with understanding my decision-making process, which I'm not particularly clear on sometimes. Like I'm not really clear on it. And I think I've made some bad decisions early and good decisions too late. So what would you give me? I mean, you've known me for years. What would you say other than my poor choice in bathrobes?
You're a lot like most of the people that we deal with, in the sense that you suffer from the curse of competency. And I tell her, one of the ways I describe you to a lot of people is that you are a creative force. And, that creative force, you're usually ahead of the curve over most on the vision. Right. And so 2 dynamics that I see, observe, and experience. And I would love the same feedback from you on this, but I think the curse of competency causes 2 dynamics. And one of which is that you arrive at the destination long before anybody else does. And, there's always the need for patience for people to catch up with the scope of what you see. Right. And therefore I think the other 2 elements that I think also are really relevant to that is listening. Listening breeds, I'll put it this way: speed of vision inherently jeopardizes trust in an organization. Right. You see the future long before anybody else does, and it scares the stew out of most. Right. And so that jeopardizes trust. The only way to regain that level of trust, I think, is the patience of listening. And if there's one thing I would think where there's what I would call a gap that I observe, is your speed of vision outpaces your patience for listening.
So that presumes my question, which is, can a leader get better at the craft of leadership? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the age old question: are leaders made or born? And I think a little bit of both. Um, I think there are some people, for whatever reason, and it has nothing to do with personality. One of the things I don't agree with is this notion of leadership personality. In fact, um, uh, uh, Jim Collins, Good to Great author, when he looked at the charismatic leadership style, he saw it as a liability more than an asset in an organization. So I don't buy into a leadership personality. I buy into sort of the art and the science of leadership, meaning you're blending, it's part art form, it's part science. And because it's part science, then there's stuff there that can be learned. You can, the skill sets surrounding leaders, like, for example, the ability to, leaders intuitively and instinctively have a vision of the future, right? They're moving toward that vision. Well, I think you can then begin to learn how to articulate that in a way that enlists others to play and to participate with that vision. I think that leaders make great decisions. You can learn skills that force you to actually sharpen the timing of your leadership, of your decisions, and the implementation of your decisions, as well as making sure that that you get the decision, you make the right call. So yeah, I think that there are practices that you can engage in that really are helpful. Just if I were to rattle off four practices, I think that would make a huge impact. One, it is there's a practice that I engage in on a regular basis. I call it my 3 R's, and that is reading, reflecting, and writing. Yes, I know writing starts with a W.
I was just going to ask about that Flagler College degree there for a second. Yeah, that's okay. Keep going.
I was an English major. What can I say? And the 4th hour, if I were to add it, retreating. You retreat so that you can read, write, and reflect. And those things, that practice, getting quiet and still and learning the renewing things that renew your soul and renew your energy can help you with stress, right? Writing or reading from a diverse, I love to read biographies of leaders, right? And autobiographies of leaders. Reading outside of your discipline, reading from other fields, hanging out with leaders that lead in other environments can help you immensely with complexity, right? Because you transfer what can I pollinate from that setting? What cross pollinates there? I think that helps immensely. I help you understand complexity. The art of reflection is really critical to improving on your decision making. When I get away, I try to at least once a year. Tell me about Glenn, what were the 10 decisions that you made over the course of the year that were really important? Can you remember them? And then how did they play out? Did they play out the way that you had? One of the other things, and you heard me allude to this, did you make the decision in time?
Say it again.
Did I make the decision in time?
Oh, that's good.
One of the phrases that's always sort of haunted me is that you can make the wrong decision late, but you make the right decision at the wrong time, and it ends up being the wrong decision. Timing matters. And so part of good decision making is making decisions not too quickly or reactively, nor too slowly, that the solution is beyond being able to be implemented effectively. So, and then the other thing that I just think called the awareness side, the most difficult practice for leaders, as you increase your position in an organization, you're the owner of the law firm, whether you like it or not, your feedback loops are terrible, because almost everybody who would give you feedback, you sign their paycheck, or you give them access to their solution legally. And therefore, the feedback loops for most owners of law firms are highly distorted. And so you have to figure out, no matter where you are in an organization or where you want to aspire to be, you have to be very proactive and solicit feedback. And I'll say this, because, the journey of leaders, an organization like a law firm, an organization like Atticus, wants the kind of people who would flourish independently. They'd be great lawyers on their own. They'd be great practice advisors independently, but the reason firms flourish is because they're made up of people who really do want to get better at their craft. And one of the things I will say about practicing in an organization like Atticus is that I know that I am better at my craft because I practice in proximity to other people that are equally committed to that. And having done that journey for a long time, I can tell you that along the way, I've gotten feedback that I've loved, and I've gotten feedback that didn't feel so good.
What else would you consider the factors to determine an effective leader?
And the final one I think is just really, is critical because it impacts the overall health of the organization. Here's my argument. And there would be others that would agree with me. Healthy organizations grow easier, faster, more organically and naturally, and have a broader capacity for growth. And so, you can be a high stress person who can manage complexity and makes the best tactical and strategic decisions, but you can be a toxic, poisonous influence on the organization that stunts the growth of the organization or makes the growth experience all about turmoil. If you don't have a heightened degree of self-awareness and other awareness. And this is where Goleman's work on emotional intelligence plays a critical part. This is why EQ is a heavy, heavy factor in determining the sustainability of an organization.
Well, stay there for a second. Just stay there. Just to define who you're referencing and what EQ means.
Yeah. So, gosh, what is it, 30 years ago? I remember it first showed up on my radar screen because I think it made the front page of Time magazine, this article that says EQ determines more about your income than IQ. And it was Robert Goleman who coined the phrase emotional intelligence. And he basically said emotional intelligence is a progression that highly emotional intelligent people are aware of the dynamics that are going on inside them, their emotional state. B, once they know their emotional state, they can modify their emotional state. C, they can address the emotional state that's in the relationships or the environment in which they're operating. And then 4, can actually influence or impact move the emotional state of those that are around them. And to the extent that you can do all 4 of those things, you have a high degree of emotional intelligence. I will say one of the things that I always really emphasize, I always said healthy leaders are incredibly self-aware. But I think that too much self-awareness without doing things to help you be other aware can sometimes cause a degree of narcissism. I'm really aware of what's going on in my world and in my soul and in my gut. I don't give a damn about what's going on in your world. Right. And so those two things go hand in hand. What's the point of being aware of what's going on inside of you emotionally, mentally? And if you're not paying attention to the influence of your leadership and picking up on the dynamics of how your leadership is affecting your environment.